This is Phi 20.349, and today I've been preparing to set up a new project for an architectural portfolio on the Photon platform. And I hadn't set up a new site in a while, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of go through, clean up my scripts, bring everything up to date, and then record the process for doing that. So this is where we're at right now, and over here are my notes. You can see that we've got essentially four major components to setting up a new site, which we will do on our local development environment first, and then publish out to our server. But the first step is to create an empty GitHub repository. So we use Git for archiving all of our code and content for our projects. And that is stored in a remote repository as well, copied to a remote repository at GitHub. So we're going to set that up first. Then the next thing is to clone the Grav application and then a starter skeleton for the site here. And then once that's all set up, we will push all of that configuration that we've created for this new project up to that GitHub repository so it can be saved there. And then we're going to set up our server to create a new staging site. And then we are going to deploy that site that we've created to this staging server through GitHub, through a GitHub pull. So let's get started with that and get right into creating a brand new GitHub repository. Okay, so let's jump down to the browser, and I've already got my Illumify organization all set up here. And all we need to do is click the New button and give our repository a name. Oops, that's not what I want. Here we go, get in that. And we're going to call this leaf.illumify.com. This will be for Leaf architecture, and we're just creating a staging site on my illumify.com domain right now. And we're going to make this public right now. We may change that later, and then create the repository. And GitHub now gives us an empty repository with a bunch of instructions on how to fill it, but we don't need that. So we are going to jump back to our page here and get started with creating our new instance of a Grav Photon site. Okay, the next step is to launch the script that will create the clone of our new site. So we'll come over to our notes page and we'll quit this and type sites to bring up the sites menu. And this is a listing of all of the sites that are actually running here. And simply typing N will kick off the new site script and will allow us to start to put in the information. So if you remember, we are on the Illumify organization, and our project is leaf.illumify.com. And now we'll give a title for our site. I'm going to call it Leaf Architecture. And now it's going to start copying files. The first thing it does is it actually creates a sim-linked clone of the Grav platform. So we have only one instance of Grav installed, and we are using symlinks to create copies of that. And then we make a clone of our starter site, and that will and then it prompts us to create a user, and then we're done. We've already set up a site that we can begin to start populating content in. If I hit P for pages, you can see the top level menu. So it gives, this is just, some of the boilerplate that I have for, for a skeleton site for Grav, just thinking of all the things that somebody might want to have, an organization might want to have. So number one would be the homepage, and then we have a mission, a portfolio of work, posts, and that kind of thing. And we'll get into more of the elements of this later. But from here, come back up, and we can now open this in a browser, so you can see this is just based on of our default configurations. But there we can start to walk through the pages of the site, all keyboard driven as well. So that is the step of actually cloning the site. So next, let's go over to save everything in GitHub and then push it up to our GitHub server. So let's take a look at that next. Okay, Git is highly integrated into all of the scripts on the Photon platform. So here on our site's homepage, we just simply have to type capital G to get into the Git menu. And you can see that we are one ahead of our server, right? So it's saying, I have a Git commit that's local that is not on the server. So we need to push that there. So typing P will bring up our shortcut code, and that will begin to push the files. First they're compressed, and then they'll start to be copied up. And this is a few megabytes, so that can take a few minutes, generally, but it seems to be moving pretty fast, moving really, really fast. It's awesome. And then we'll be able to go and check on the GitHub site and see that it now has a collection of files there. And we are almost ready. Trailing at the end. So this is really probably the simplest part of the whole operation here, to create a new instance. These scripts are working really smoothly now. There's a ton of different operations that go into making this happen, but when you can script things and capture these operations, it just makes it so easy to be able to reproduce. And you can see, like, oh, okay, we're up at around 9.2 megabytes. And getting pretty close now. And then once we are done with this, we will use the information that we've stored in GitHub and pull that down onto our server, as I mentioned, to do our deployments from there. And this should just wrap up very cleanly here right now. And it might give us a little warning because we're pushing up there for the first time. So bandwidth is the key here. The fatter your bandwidth, the less time that will take. And here from out at the outpost, things can get a little slow on the upload. So we're all set now. And now if we go back down to our GitHub site and we'll hit refresh, we should see now we've got lots of files and some README that is just kind of a default README that needs to be improved there. But everything's ready to go. We have our first deployment into our GitHub repository. So the next step is going to be to set up domain, a subdomain for our leaf.lumify.com, and pull the files down. So let's get started with that. Okay, final step. We are going to deploy our brand new site to our hosting server. So we're going to do that through SSH, right through the command line, just the same way we did the setup pretty much here on our local machine. So let's come over, let's see, get over here, quit that, and I'm going to type in motion for my organization and log in here. And there I am. So now I'm at a command prompt in the terminal, but I'm actually in the context of the server machine at my hosting company right now. But I have all the same scripts set up over there. So if I type sites, it will show me a listing of all the sites that are deployed here on this server, just like on my local machine. And so just prior to setting this up, I did create a subdomain for leaf.illumify.com. The directory is in there. So if I were to just list the directories here, you can see the top of the list is leaf.illumify.com. So it's in there, but it's empty right now. So we can populate that, and we do that by just typing S to bring up our restore menu, and we're going to restore from this this GitHub repository. So we're going to name this leaf.illumify.com, and the repo or the org name is Illumify. And very similar to how I created a clone when we instantiated this new site, it's going to be doing a very similar process in setting up this GitHub repository onto the server to become a new site. And so it creates a new user each time. I don't store the user accounts in GitHub when I'm doing the deploys. So there we are. So now on our server, we have the leaf.illumify.com site. So let's quit this and exit. And come back to our, this is our local site. And from here, I hit O for the open menu and 3 for server. And that should pop us down. And there we are. So there is our site ready to be worked on now on our staging server, deployed. So all within a few minutes, all of these parts have been able to come together. It's pretty exciting. So that is it for this log right now. We're going to get into, in subsequent logs, the process of collecting the information for the site and setting up the style and identity and logos and all of those other things that are necessary for that. So, but this is the first step in creating a web to receive all of that information. So that is it for this episode here today. Thanks for joining us.